Hauntcast. Haunting Halloween and horror.
Theater of the Mind. A few months ago, I was on the phone with Chris Baker, who wanted my help tracking down an old Theater of the Mind segment I recorded in the early days of our original podcast. The segment featured an essay by our good friend and Hauntcast minion, August Rose. August and his wife Pandora were the creators and proprietors of Dark Rose Manor, a well-known and highly respected home haunt in Colorado. As both were of a decidedly goth background and thoroughly steeped in theater and the arts, their creative passions clearly seeped into the aesthetic of their new and quickly growing haunt. If you look up their names and Dark Rose Manor online, you will immediately see the amazing quality and beauty of their haunts and the attention to detail that they put into them. The essay was by and large well received. Everyone loved the pictures and videos available of the Rose's handiwork and appreciated the unique approach they took to haunting. After all haunters strive to achieve a haunt with such high-grade visual and atmospheric appeal. But not all haunters have the resources and background experience to reach the extravagant levels of visual quality achieved by seasoned veterans. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and people just starting out at haunting aren't going to hit pro-grade haunt visuals right out of the gate. We at Hauntcast take great delight at seeing the fantastic works of other home haunters, and we celebrate them with accolades when we come across truly impressive finished projects. But at some point we got hit with a certain degree of backlash from a few novice haunters who were starting to feel left out. They suggested that we were becoming too elitist, focusing on the best of the best high-end props and haunt scenes while leaving the newbies behind in the dust. I have to admit this stung a little bit. That was never our intent. We started the show with the tagline, "For home haunters and Halloween enthusiasts," which later became Halloween fanatics, which technically means all haunters and Halloween fanatics, not just the well-seasoned vets. But admittedly, in our excitement when presented with such a plethora of high-end projects, we may have neglected to provide a fair share of advice and direction to those just starting out. If you look at our humble beginnings, it sort of makes sense. Chris and I, who basically started Hauntcast, met online on Haunt Forum, one of two very popular Halloween-related forums on the web. While Halloween Forum, the larger site, was about all general aspects of Halloween and horror, Haunt Forum was dedicated specifically toward home haunters. So obviously the membership there had a very high percentage of established, experienced haunters with large bodies of work to showcase. Since we were essentially born on Haunt Forum, the members there comprised the entirety of our initial audience. And because of the nature of the forum, that audience was largely comprised of established home haunters with years of experience and plenty of photos and video of their works. Other haunters on Halloween Forum quickly learned about us, and soon we were absolutely drenched with home-brewed haunty goodness. So it could be said that we were guilty of being spoiled with riches from the very beginning, and perhaps missed out on addressing the newbie haunters to as great an extent. And so I'd like to address that with a few tips and suggestions for the Halloweenophile who wants to go beyond simply decorating for the holiday and move up to a full-blown haunt. In the spirit of full disclosure, let me start out by saying that I am not a haunt expert. I am a haunt geek. I just really appreciate haunts. I cannot present you with first-hand experience of starting a haunt because I've never started one. I have years of haunting experience, but always at other people's haunts, even a couple of pro ones, but not my own. However, working with other homies, sharing their stories, and spending years on the discussion forums reading the histories of myriad others has resulted in my learning a thing or two. So please allow me to pass on a few pearls that I've picked up along the years. To start out, you really have to ask yourself, what is your goal, your vision for the haunt you want? It doesn't have to be some elaborate 10-year plan, just what do you want to have next year? There are several different ways to approach a home haunt. Is it going to be a walkthrough haunt where the audience actually travels through the scenes throughout your yard in sequence, or a static display seen from the sidewalk? The amount of yard space available has a lot to say about that, as well as local municipal or HOA codes that may not allow a walkthrough. If you can do one, make sure to check with an official to find out what you can and can't get away with in your build. And think about who your audience will be. Are you in a neighborhood with a lot of little trick-or-treaters? If so, your walkthrough might want to back off from the Leatherface and Jason Gorefests, and your roving ghoulies like zombies and demons and whatever should probably not come across as too directly threatening to the kiddies. If, however, the people coming through are more of the middle school to high school and beyond crowd, feel free to pull out all the stops. It's probably a good idea to instruct any helpers you have on the big night to have signals for a scare, no scare option to accommodate the younglings when they come through. If you're in a town where there was a number of murders in recent years, a serial killer themed haunt might not go over too well. And if you're in a neighborhood where racial tensions are present, it's probably a good idea to avoid any themes or scenes that could be misinterpreted along those lines. Anyone who knows me well knows I personally have very little use for political correctness, but becoming the target of ire from angry neighbors is generally a bad idea. Also, are you planning a haunt with a particular theme, like zombies, vampires, H.P. Lovecraft, haunted house, alien invasion, or whatever? Or are you wanting to go non-themed with a little bit of everything? A graveyard, a mad laboratory, a witch's shack, and a toxic spill all in the same haunt? A themed haunt has the benefit of cohesion. Everything seems to belong together, and it gives a feeling of completeness. However, the non-themed haunt can still be awesome by simply giving the different scenes a sense of separation. So, say the Mad Lab is fully decked out, but separate from the Witch's Shack, which itself is out of view of the execution chamber, etc., etc. The idea is that people go from scene to scene and theme to theme without getting stuff all mixed up. If the elements are thematically jumbled together, one risks the sense of a haunt being lost, and it just becomes an elaborate and somewhat sloppy decorating job. So now that you've decided what you'd like to see, it's time to start planning. And if you're a beginner, that plan obviously starts with the KISS principle. If you don't keep it simple, you run the risk of getting out over your skis and face-planting when you get overwhelmed. Start simple and don't try for the extremely elaborate when you're starting out. If you're a detail freak and you want your creation to look absolutely fabulous, consider starting small and just going crazy on a section of your lawn. A cemetery is usually an excellent thing to start with. If you have only a small graveyard, but it's decked out with weathered tombstones, a fence and gate, atmospheric lighting, maybe some fog and sound effects or background music, that's going to make a big impression. And that cemetery setup can easily be incorporated into a number of different themes in your subsequent haunts. You do, unfortunately, have to think of budget, and budget involves time as well as money. That's where you need to think about a concept I learned a long time ago in my early days as a costumer, the golden triangle. Do you want it fast? Do you want it cheap? Or do you want it good? Pick two. You only get two. If you want a quality outcome, but you don't have much of a budget, you'd better have a lot of time available with that papier-mâché, monster mud, and other inexpensive materials to get good sound detailing on your props and scene settings. And if you don't have that sort of time, be ready to start shelling out some major bucks for pre-made items and effects. If you're short on time and money, well, be prepared to have some decidedly low-res results, in which case you may want to interject a bit of humor into the haunt. If your finished creation ends up looking a little cheesy, it may be a good idea to show that you're not taking things too seriously and it's all in the spirit of having fun. You'd rather have people laughing with you than laughing at you. Once you've considered the time and finance factors, you have to think about how much you think you can accomplish in your given time frame. You may have a certain number of props and scenes in mind that you'd like to see in your finished haunt, but can you really achieve all of them? And if so, will they be of a quality that's acceptable to you? In a business class I took as an undergrad, we were taught the ABC method of planning a business. Think of the end result you believe you can achieve in the time allotted to you, what you think you're able to accomplish. This is your Track B plan. Now imagine that things have not gone as well as expected. You've had some financial shortcomings, life issues have cut into your time, illness, whatever. You won't be able to reach that Track B goal. So before you even get started, imagine the minimum results that you can achieve that you would still be happy with. A bare bones version of your haunt that isn't what you hoped for but still looks good. The critical, most important parts of your display that you just can't do without. That's your Track C plan. You've got the most important stuff done, just without the support of some of the other cool stuff that you'd hope to flesh out the haunt with. So the idea is to start working on the haunt by focusing on all of the Track C elements, those critical, most important parts you really need to see finished, and make sure those get completed first. Then work on finishing up all those Track B elements that you really wanted to see when you first envisioned the haunt. But what if, by some miracle, the stars have all aligned and you end up finishing your Track B plan ahead of time and under budget? Welcome to that rare, wonderful Haunters unicorn, the track A Haunt. Now you can work on some finishing touches to really make it all pop. Maybe that ground fog chiller that you thought would make the cemetery look totally cool, but you didn't think you'd be able to pull off. Or a laser vortex or projection effect, or just some extra detailing to really beautify the end result. If you can, by all means go for it, but only after your C and B tracks are all finished to your satisfaction. That's the plan. Hammer down on C, shoot for B, and add on the A if you can when everything else is complete. And finally, just accept that things are inevitably going to go wrong from time to time. Prop breakage, unreliable helpers, or inclement weather can and often will happen. That's just life. Don't let that make you so frustrated that it turns you off of haunting. I'm sure most people listening to this are Hauntcast fans that know us from our years as a long-form podcast, but there are some new listeners as well. So, if you are new to the show, upon going back through our archives, you'll notice that I have a tagline to end all my Theater of the Mind segments: keep the ghost light burning. This line harkens back to the olden days of live staged theater. Theatrical performers have always been notoriously superstitious, and they felt that every performance would create ghosts of itself. Every mistake made, and every successful delivery as well, would produce a sort of spirit that would haunt the stage at later shows, affecting the performance. So a lamp would be left burning on the stage at night when the theater was deserted, the light of which would scare away the ghosts of previous performances, assuring that the next performance would be as fresh and unsullied as opening night. If something goes wrong in your haunt, make a note of it during the post-Halloween post-mortem, figure out what to do to fix it, and then let it go. Don't let it haunt you next Halloween. Start fresh every night, every year. So those are just a few tips for the fledgling haunters out there. Picture your goal. Know your audience. Decide on your theme if you want to use one. Keep it simple when you're starting out. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Do you want it fast, cheap, or good? Pick two. Lay out success tracks that allow you a fallback if things don't go as planned during the build. Have fun and enjoy the journey no matter where the destination ends up. And since you're not going to want to do this just once, always remember to keep your ghost light burning. From the Theater of the Mind, I'm Revenant, and you're listening to Hauntcast.
Please follow the podcast. Give us a 5-star review. Stalk us on social media. Links in the description. And visit our blog page for more show info at hauntcastpodcast.net/blog. Until next time, stay scary.
I'm going now. Heaven help you.